go straight, if you go from this building, then you turn left, you go straight up the road from the parking lot. Okay.
Yeah, I did eat there last time, it was really good, I had some.
Okay, so you go up,
Had
go up
these really good
High
vegetables
Street,
in there.
and you turn right.
Little potato
You're
lettuce.
going from the parking lot. Going to the parking lot. It's High Street, the Main Street. And how far down is
He's gonna look it up right now.
it? Must not be much more.
Is anyone sitting there?
Block off on High Street. Do they have some good parking? Oh,
I think you have to park on the street.
I appreciate you starting that up for us.
All right, would
no
it be
problem.
better if I just left my car there and walked?
It's about the same distance as to the pizza place.
You might not find any parking place any closer.
So
Where you
walk up
headed?
the hill again and take a left.
The
The Grand after we get done. Anybody wanna go?
Okay, this
Can you say
says,
this again?
it's 107 East High
Thank
Street.
you.
It got 4 out of 5 on their stars.
Oh, really?
It's delicious. It is good. I liked it.
I haven't been.
They have bread and you can just
Okay.
use a little olive oil stuff.
So, we, lost Karen.
You know-
We're on grade 8.
I have a thought about some of these words.
Okay.
107
Should
East
we maybe bold some of them most strongly?
So that they stick out for
Thorough,
us?
yeah, thorough.
So that we can see the differences?
Well, I think even teachers would like to see, here's what differentiates this, here's how it gets, because it's awfully easy to look at that and say, every one of those are alike.
Okay.
And they're not, so
You
there
do
are
have to look
differences.
through to see the progression.
Yes, but if it's bolded, then you can kind of, it jumps out, oh, this is not exactly the same.
Every time I wanted to do
That might be a little remedial, but I still think it's.
Most, and I think on that, it's gonna be most strongly supports.
Oh, sorry.
See that one?
Because that will be one of the main pieces of it, why it's nearly the same, but not.
Right.
Am I passing this on, or?
No, that's yours.
That's my set, okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So like that, and that, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it kind of is. Well, that's the same.
Oh, I don't know what's happening. Oh, I'm unplugged. I was like, it turned blue. I didn't turn it blue.
You might save that, if you haven't already.
I haven't. I'm so
Oh.
glad you said
Save
that.
it under anything.
We don't care, save it,
what.
take it.
I have really,
I have done that.
gotten a little spoiled with my Google Docs that I use all the time, and it just saves them. And my teachers, when I'm working with them, they're like, save it, save it. I'm like, I don't have to. But this one I should save, yeah. Okay, so we are in, let's see. Reading. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, so, do we wanna go to grade 7 now?
Yes.
Okay, so you all have a grade 7 packet,
Yes.
right? Okay. So I'll pull up grade 7 up here.
Cite several pieces of textual evidence.
So the main difference here is several pieces.
Several pieces of textual.
Versus, just support, just.
I'm gonna look at grade
evidence.
6. Okay, so in grade 6, they just cite textual evidence.
Right.
In grade 7, it's several pieces.
Right.
And then in grade 8, they have to determine which ones most strongly
Strongly.
support. So I can have several, what's that, 3? 3 pieces of evidence, maybe? So if I have 3 pieces of evidence in 7th grade, they may be okay pieces of evidence. But in 8th grade, when
Right.
I look at my 3, I better be able to choose the 2 that most strongly support it.
Yes.
Okay.
And at 6,
You're just saying
well
that.
defined some
Eight
evidence.
Right.
The text. Yeah.
Cite textual evidence to support analysis.
And that's exactly where they are, 6, 7, and 8. Fits it
That
perfectly.
feels good.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to take this language that's right here and just pop that in to 7th grade?
Cite several, I don't know, there's something about several pieces I don't like, but I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. So want me to take that language and we can mess with it?
So just
Yeah,
say
what-
cite evidence to support
report analysis?
Well, because
then
that's
that doesn't make
That's
the
sixth grade.
distinction, yeah.
That's
Oh,
two.
gotcha.
That is what sixth grade says.
How
At
about
least
multiple
two.
pieces of evidence?
Yeah, at least two.
I wouldn't put a number.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, I always say,
So
all my
you
classes,
you put that in an
Yeah.
item step.
And
Three.
see, but then
Three
again, I
reasons.
think
Put
something
that
like
in
that
a-
you wanna leave up to the teacher.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It depends on how
And it
much
may
evidence
depend
is
on
in
the
the
text.
text.
Yeah, really would
Right.
depend on
And,
the
well,
You
text.
tell them
it
to
depends
cite
on
three
how much
and there's
room
not
you have
three
to
there,
work.
that's killing something.
so most strongly in faith, several, that's okay. I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Several,
You're thinking like pieces is the word, it's
Pieces.
examples is really what you're thinking of.
Yes.
Something better than pieces.
yes, I don't like pieces. Pieces sounds like it could be a paragraph. Pieces. Several reasons, several examples, several items.
Well, textual evidence comes in many forms.
Yeah. It could be a graph.
It could, yeah, it could be an example, it could be a detail, it could be a quote.
Anything new and exciting?
Oh, this was other business.
Okay.
Different bell.
Alright. Well, let's just leave it for now.
Okay.
Let's bold it though.
So
Yeah.
several pieces, right?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe the other word will come to our head.
That's funny that you mentioned that because I was working with, some art teachers actually the other day, cause that falls under me, and, someone said something like, that piece, and he goes, when did we start using that word? Why do we, the word piece, why does that enter into our conversation that way now? I don't understand, it's not piece of pizza or piece of pie, why does piece now,
Yeah.
she's
My
like, I
boss
have the
says that all
assessment
the
piece, but
time.
I'm still working on this piece, and he's
Yeah.
like, what is that? I don't know, it's not a puzzle. Well, maybe it is, I don't know, it was just funny. So it's just
My boss
slightly
does
relevant
that,
to
and
your.
it kind of bothers me too. These were missing.
Yeah, it's gonna fit in perfectly, yeah. Okay, so back to sixth grade then, would you like me to look at sixth grade? There you go.
And it is just textual evidence, not several pieces, so I don't see a whole lot of difference between that, honestly. How could we make that different enough?
Well, it just identifies, you've cited something, and so when the teacher says, where did you get that idea? The student can think of one thing, as opposed to
Yeah, having to have several.
multiple. I think at least that appears to be the only difference in the enrollments between six and seven. Which I think, again, thinking about going back down to 5 and below, I know, working a little bit with the elementary instructional coaches in our district, that's a big deal with them.
Which one?
Citing evidence.
Oh,
Where did
yes.
you get that from the story? So
Oh, yeah.
that would be a link up.
Yes.
Well, there's
Find
citing
it.
evidence, yeah, all the way from
Right.
kindergarten up.
Right.
Well,
But
five-
it's that going into the text and finding that information in the text.
5 is quote accurately from a text when explaining what the text says
Yeah.
explicitly.
So that gets you back into the text and you're quoting directly from it. And then in sixth grade, the difference is we want you to be able to go back to the text, pull evidence, but you're not necessarily quoting it, you can paraphrase it or summarize it.
Right.
Or reference it. As the author indicated on page 20,
Right.
this
Yes.
is blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I'm assuming 5th graders and 6th graders would be more able to look at that in memory of it. Well, I said.
Right, a lot of them do, but I've got a bunch that will just quote the pieces out of that, out of that article.
Which is better than.
The author says quote, because we've worked on plagiarism.
Well, which I think is better than what we find a lot of our students doing, which is not going back to the text at all.
Right.
Like, once I finished it, I have finished it, and I'm not going into it, which is what I like about the language, that says textual evidence, because it's not just evidence, it has to be text-based, and so.
And this is not
you can
new,
go
but-
back into it.
Common Core, I have
No.
done this for years.
Absolutely.
Well, I know
Go
most of the
back to the
stuff is
story.
not new.
You know, I always gonna say, I
No.
wanna see those pages flipping back and forth.
Right. Yep. So do we like this? And
Yes.
that being the,
The inference is drawn, that's so hard in sixth grade, but I don't know that you can do anything about that, you know. With the systems. It's fine, but it's just, some of them are terrible at inferring things.
yes, some of them are so literal.
Old kids are too.
Old kids.
Well, that's when you get into the, well, how do you know that's what they meant? Well, how do you know that's what he intended? Well, how do you know? It's like,
Especially if it's abstract.
We used to call that the intentional fallacy.
Yes.
Okay, so.
okay, so what I would do here, hold on, is just textual evidence, right? Okay, so the way this particular standard shifts as we go from you're citing text-based evidence to several pieces to determining which one's the strongest, and then it's relevant and thorough. I like that progression, that's a nice progression.
Is the bold okay with everybody?
Yeah,
I'm good with
I
it.
really like it.
Doesn't hurt anything. I mean, it helps really, and then.
Because, yeah.
Well, it helps
because
us
you
too,
would
with
just-
this, a nice once
Yeah.
over.
You might just tend to look at the top one and scan and say, well, these are exactly the same.
Yeah.
But that points out.
Which one was the one that we just glued in, was it the
Nine.
10? We
Nine.
glued
9
in
and
the
10
10?
are
I'm really good with 9 and 10 being the same, and if we
Okay.
decide that we wanna combine the 2 grade levels, I'm okay with that too, I don't really care.
Well, and if we, as we look through other standards, then we may
Yeah.
see.
We could
We
leave
don't
them the
wanna do
same.
that and.
Right, cause there might be times we can separate them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we should.
When you start
Yeah.
getting to the language in particular, that's when you want to.
Yeah, and there were a couple times when, I think when we were talking about, like, I don't know, just things having to do with rhetoric and just different stuff like that. Like, those feel like they should be curriculum decisions, those should be local decisions, but then when they're assessed, they don't become like local decisions anymore. And that's where my struggle is as a curriculum coordinator, is trying to lead that work and being like, well, I don't know if we can separate it, I don't know if we should, you know, well, let's try it, see what happens.
Well, like
If we
that-
guess wrong, then we'll know.
That number 8, the evidence that most strongly supports, that is tested on the math and the.
Yes, yeah, and I like the way that word, it's worded, and I don't think it's different from 9 to 10, so. Okay, so do you wanna go to the next one? The next one we said was determine word meanings and context, literal and figurative. I'm going to nickname this. Word meanings.
And that's closest to, and the last one, interpret words and phrases.
So you think it's more like standard 4?
Standard 4.
Which one were you on, analyze the impact of author's choices?
No, we're
Oh, we're
on, it'd
looking
be,
for word
for the
meanings.
anchor standards, it's
It's
4.
anchor standard
Interpret
4.
words and phrases. And grade 6 is determine the meanings of words and phrases, commas and text, figurative and connotative meanings.
Okay. Alright, where am Okay, so we said, determine word meanings in context, literal and figurative.
And I'm gonna vote to not, definitely not put in things like include Shakespeare or something. We don't need that.
No, and I also vote for getting rid of the words that say particularly fresh, engaging, or beautiful.
Fresh.
Where is that?
It's right there.
Right there and
Oh my God.
Let me tell you how much fun we have with that writing the curriculum.
Should be a fresh idea that hasn't ever been, you know, discussed.
It was
at work.
terrible.
I hate that term, fresh new ideas.
Fresh and beautiful, it was like, okay. I had to really work to try to defend that when we were working on a curriculum, I'm like, oh no, really, it's, not dead words,
So
you
what
know,
are they
like.
really trying to say there? Give me an example of what, they had a reason why they put that in there, fresh, engaging, or beautiful. Can you give me an example of some fresh, engaging, and beautiful words that I might need to interpret?
I think
And
we said something a
zero
little bit ago.
at the bone, that's on, and zero at the bone.
Okay, now what's another way to say that? Besides
Well,
fresh,
I'm just
engaging,
talking
and
about in
beautiful?
context, the Emily Dickinson poem about snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, it has very context bound.
I know what they're trying to say here, but what's a
Yeah,
better
we
way
need
to
to-
say it
well, we
besides
just
fresh,
need to
engaging,
dump
and
it.
beautiful?
I don't
We need
think
to
that it
dump
needs
it.
to be
Yeah,
included,
just
I
dump
mean,
it.
I think,
Multiple meanings.
You could say, if you wanted to say something, you could say, or language that is unique and novel, I mean, or you could say that.
Interesting, but
Well,
complex.
language that is particularly
More
fresh,
complex.
engaging, or beautiful. That stinks.
Strike,
Including words with multiple meanings.
I just would make it, because like you said, people are gonna say that.
so when I look at,
What about, or language that is unique and novel?
I'm just gonna go trust my
I would say.
I'm curious about this analyzing the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone. This is determine word meanings and context. Boom.
But it is literature, standard for literature,
Literal
how that would look in
figurative.
literature.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean, you could do the same thing in nonfiction as well,
Actually, there are two parts
And you,
to
but you
this.
would add
It is.
technical meanings.
Yes.
Right, and that's what I meant with it, when you asked me for the example, it's the word choices that project a certain attitude or tone.
Right, true.
Mhm.
Sorry, folks. Okay. Well, do you like any of the other, so let's see, there's Missouri,
Sure.
Massachusetts, South Carolina, and then Statsky.
Yeah, well, I hate the phrasing of Stotsky because it starts listing out all the specific, or as my daughter used to call it, all the Pacific ones.
But will those specific ones be somewhere down in craft?
Well, yeah, I can see that possibly. I just, and I'm not against putting in specific types of figurative language, particularly at more the middle
Mhm.
school level, where we wanna introduce
Yes.
certain ones.
Yeah.
But really at 11 and 12, they should have a command of those, for example, by
I would
now
agree.
already. And then there's more stuff they should, so, but that makes it sound like that's the stuff.
Mhm.
And it does say such as, but still, people then hone in on the list.
So when you think about 11th and 12th grade, I feel like, again, this is that place where I'm asking you to apply things I've taught you before. I've already taught you how
Right.
to determine the meaning of unknown words in context. I've already taught you how to determine what things say literally and figuratively. So I'm really looking for an upper level application of this standard, right? So it really has to do with with the difference in the text that you're reading. So I almost feel like it can be that general statement of determining the meaning of words, or determining the meaning of words in context, literal and figurative, including, or whatever, analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, or something like that. I don't think it needs to be as well what it is now.
The only thing, you need you need the idea of language in there too, because it's not just determining words with multiple meanings, it's including language. So how about including words and or language with multiple meanings?
What's the difference in words and language again?
I see teachers just looking at single words with two meanings or double meanings or, words and phrases, including words or language with multiple meanings.
What does that mean? What would you say is the difference between words with
Words
multiple
and
meanings and
language.
language with multiple meanings?
Words and phrases.
Including words?
Words with multiple meanings.
Or language that is particularly fresh?
No, I was thinking including words or language. Words or language, or words or phrases with multiple meanings. But I guess the word phrases is mentioned in the first line.
Yeah, phrases are made out of words.
I don't want
language.
teachers zeroing in on that. Let's find a word in this paragraph that has two meanings, and that's what we're gonna put our focus on here. All right?
I don't know that you can fix that with this.
I don't think you
Cause the way I read it, I'm just gonna copy this. The way I read it is that, when students come upon words they don't know, they should be able to figure them out. And if they have multiple meanings, they should be able to figure out which meaning applies.
Yeah, but.
But that, you know, I see your point. I don't know how you fix that. I'm
Well,
getting rid of
it's
Shakespeare.
not just a word, it's the use of language also.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but my point is that it would not occur to me as a teacher to go looking for an instance where there is a word that has double meanings and asking students to, you know, focus on that. It would be when we come upon it,
It would be
thinking
in
about,
context.
Right.
yeah, thinking about, okay, so this could mean more than one thing. What do we think it means, whether it's a phrase
Goes
or
back
it's.
to that ambiguity.
It also goes back to what happens in the classroom.
And you might discuss on my level, well, would it be the same as this meeting?
Okay, so there it is without the Shakespeare and the beautiful and fresh language.
Okay, so teachers are gonna understand that this doesn't apply just to a single word.
Oh, yeah.
This
Mhm.
also applies to the way language is used within the text.
Yes.
Well, if we leave the analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, including words with multiple meanings, we're to leave that in there.
You know, the Massachusetts one, not to change it up too, but I'm looking at that, analyze patterns of imagery or symbolism connected with themes and or tone of mood. Now, this is, I realize individual words now, but connecting individual words, we've got, tone in there, meaning and tone. What about theme? Because sometimes an individual word,
Theme is hit somewhere else. I think.
Theme is next on.
Yeah.
okay, but here's the deal. I get that, because I looked at that. Number 5, structure of text is relate to the whole word. And it says specific sentences, paragraphs, or larger portions. But what I'm suggesting is individual words can do that. There can be a certain word that is, excuse me for using hard darkness again. I mean, you know what I mean? There can be a word that actually you need to connect because of that single word or a small phrase being repeated in a certain way.
Mhm.
I'm just throwing that out there, that's all. That
Like, how would it
sometimes-
be different if they would have used this instead of this?
Yeah, and they, in the next one, it focuses on that same thing, the structure, including sentences, paragraphs, larger portions relate to each other in the whole thing. But I do think sometimes that happens with words, if we wanted to find a way to add that, just about, you know what I mean?
Looking at the patterns.
Well, it said analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone. So maybe it's comprehended in meaning, but I'm just suggesting meaning, tone, and theme. Or,
Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
see what I'm getting at?
Mhm.
That meanings implies to me the
Mhm.
meaning right there.
I like, yeah, I think that works, yeah.
But meaning,
You think about
tone,
that.
and theme.
It's been a while since I've been in the high school classroom, but I could see that. Actually, I kinda like, I don't know, I kinda like broadening it to think about theme and not just tone, although.
It's not, I mean, a lot of times there isn't a specific word that does
No,
that, but
but-
sometimes there really is. And I'm thinking
And it's
even like
intentional.
about the bad N-word in
Oh, yeah,
How to Fin,
absolutely.
where you have to talk about that,
Mhm.
because that really
Sure.
is a theme issue.
And
But
kill
if-
mockingbird.
if we get-
Right,
But
right.
if we get over to that theme one,
Can't we have both though?
Yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm saying. I don't understand why, because to me, the way the standards, the MLS standards are reading is, standard 4 focuses on word, standard 5 focuses on larger portions of text in the same way to look at it.
Well-
So why can't you do that occasionally with certain words?
I think you can.
Well,
Yeah.
but on this standard,
Have multiple references to it, to the, in here and here.
yeah, I don't have an objection.
I like that.
The thing that I'm still focusing on is, I'm noticing in this document that you copied right here, it says, this document
Uh-huh.
here. It says figurative language, all right, and it talks about an illusion.
Under the
Alright.
Stotsky side, under that one?
Yes, illusions,
Mhm.
all right. Illusions are not just one word.
No.
It's how you use the language that creates the illusion. So we wanna make sure that teachers understand that we're talking about words that have multiple meanings, but also pieces of language that can be interpreted differently.
I don't know.
I don't know the difference between words and language. Words and phrases, I know you're talking about worried that there's, they're gonna be looking at one word.
Yes,
But I'm-
I can see test items. Read the word for in paragraph 5, illusion. Which meaning, what is the meaning of this word based on how it is used in context? I can just see that, you know?
I think that might happen anywhere though.
And you're
Well-
saying that's a bad thing?
No, I'm not saying that, but I think on this particular standard, at this level, they're looking at not just how you interpret a word, but how you interpret language.
Okay, well, I can think of plenty of AP items and literature tests, since I teach them, so I like to do those workshops where they
Yeah,
do ask you
I agree.
a
I'm saying
single
that's
word.
important.
Like in Shakespeare's Richard II, there's a question on the 1991 test,
Right.
which says, what does the word straight mean here?
Right, I know that, and
The
I'm
want
saying
of
that.
money.
But I'm saying, I know that, but also at a 12th grade level, or 11th grade level, you want students to be able to interpret how language is also used. Like a particular, like an illusion, you know, if there's a particular phrase in a text or a paragraph in a text.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
creates an illusion.
That makes total sense, and,
Yeah.
and not just.
Not a word.
I think, yeah, what you're saying is, we don't want to be able to just identify the fact that illusion is used here, but to be
what-
able
how-
to understand how and why it was used.
Well, the
Would that
only
be
thing, the
under
only
cluster
thing.
2,
No.
approaching it as a writer?
No, the only thing I would suggest is I would suggest adding, in addition to that, on that very end, words with multiple meanings. I'd put including words or language with multiple meanings. Words and or language with multiple meanings.
I just don't know, I don't know that teachers are gonna know.
The difference in words and language.
I don't,
Well,
I'm
what's
struggling with
figurative
the difference.
language? When I say figurative language, what am I talking about?
So when you say
Word,
figurative
like
language,
if
I
you say
No,
we're saying-
it's not just a word.
It's
Figurative
figurative
language is
speech,
not always
it's-
just a word.
Right, but when you say figurative language, I know what you're saying. When you say language, I don't know what you mean. That's my, that's
Me
where
too,
I'm
that's
struggling.
I am too.
So
It seems
if
to
you're
me
talking
they're
about
the same
figurative
thing.
language, then maybe we should identify it that way. When we just say words or language,
Is there anything?
Because
I
it
struggle.
says including figurative and connotative meanings, we've got that in there.
Yeah, but there's not one word that says the word language up there.
words, phrases, and language.
Is the word language in there?
No.
Okay, the
Okay.
word language needs to be in there.
so we're talking about figurative language?
No, I don't agree that it needs to be in there. Words and phrases are language. And they're making the distinction here, and if you move from standard 4 to standard 5, of whether it's individual, short words and phrases versus longer portions, like sentences, paragraphs, and it says in larger portions. That's the distinction. They're all words. I don't understand the difference in words and language. I know you're
Let me
thinking of
see if I
something.
can explain this.
Okay.
sometimes words have multiple meanings. And depending on how they're used in the text, you determine the meaning of a word. So you might ask a question that, based on how it's used in paragraph 5, what is the meaning of, exploitation?
Yeah.
All right, so you go in and you look at your context clues, and you look at the surrounding text, and you try to figure out what the word meaning is. All right, at a little bit of a deeper level, the author uses, the way the author puts together sentences and crafts a paragraph, they create an illusion.
That's why I think it's cluster two.
They use language, all right, to create an illusion. All right, so that illusion.
Is it an illusion or an allusion?
Allusion.
A-L-L, okay.
Well, it's my language, allusion,
Okay.
all right?
Allude to something.
A-L-L-U-S-I-O-N.
Yeah, okay.
All right? So they create an allusion.
To
all
a
right?
well-known word.
And you read that, you have to interpret the language of the author, not the word, but the language of the author.
Well, but they
You know?
wouldn't include the word illusion.
No, their word illusion is not even in there.
Right, so I'm not sure, I don't think that this is limiting the students to
You don't
determining
think
the
it-
meaning of a specific word.
You don't think this is, okay,
I don't
all right.
either.
Okay, so if you
I
don't.
think maybe meanings is what replaces language.
I'm talking
there.
about the
Figurative
meaning of
connotative meanings.
language.
Okay, and that's why I say figurative connotative meanings is the way they phrased it, rather than figurative connotative language.
Well, it's words and language. But let's drop it, and I'm not gonna beat a dead horse unless I have to.
You're gonna save that up?
Then I'll come back and I'll
You're
beat
gonna
the horse.
save it up.
But I might have to say, I told you so. Anyway.
You've worked with teachers and seen what, and that's where you're coming from. So
That's exactly where I'm coming
I know
from.
you've got a
Because
point, I just
I
don't.
go into districts
haven't
all the
seen that.
time, and I mean, I'm working with 54 districts now, and worked with 75 before this. So I see I know what happens.
Yeah.
This turns into little bitty narrow, little bitty tiny narrow. What does the word photosynthesis mean as it is
Right.
used in paragraph 3?
But like
I
Lindsay,
think,
I don't
Janet,
think it says, I
but-
don't think it says that.
No, but
even
I
though
think,
can
Janet,
see
the
how they
reason
turn it into
that happens is because that's how they've seen it asked before. So what we need to do is figure out how to help broaden what that really should look like in assessment, as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
And I know Nick agrees with me. Don't you,
But
Nick,
you
just
know-
say yes.
I think that's why, I think that, because I think when
Okay.
teachers think about what does that look like,
All right.
what
well,
they go
let's
to
work-
is what do I know and how is it
All
been
right.
assessed?
Let's go ahead and work backwards.
All right.
And we'll see if I'm right.
All
And then
right,
I get
then.
to say,
But
I
see,
told
that's
you
where,
so.
looking at it from a AP Lit standpoint, it makes sense.
Right. But I do understand what you're saying, I just think
Yeah.
that there's a reason for that, and I don't know that any amount of
Yeah.
language written into there sort of, here's what it looks like when you assess it,
Yes.
which would
Okay,
be
well,
helpful.
let's work
But not
backwards and we'll see how this pans out.
Okay, so, we're good with what we have here, I'm gonna go to grade 10 now, right? Or grade 9, 10, really. And I'm gonna go down.
And the way they've made the distinction in the Missouri newspapers is analyze the cumulative impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone versus analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, including words with multiple meanings. So the including with multiple meanings part
And the cumulative
is in the 9-10.
different. But how is that actually different? I don't see a lot of
I don't
difference
know
there.
why cumulative is in there. I would have made it.
Well, no, honestly, that really does need to stay in there. Let me tell you why. Cumulative is where a word would occur over the course of a text. If they keep using the same word choice over and over and over again, how does it impact the overall text? Rather than the surrounding meaning. That's really important.
should find a better way to.
I know, cause see,
Say
I wouldn't have
that.
understood
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I understand what you just said, but I
Yeah.
didn't understand that
Right.
from this. No, I
Yes,
didn't.
yes, that's the whole key there, the cumulative impact of specific word choice. All right, the author continually uses the word bold throughout the text. What impact does the author's continuous use of the word bold have on the overall story or the overall theme?
Do you think that's what?
Well,
Yes,
it sounds
absolutely.
like what Maribel was saying
Yes,
about
absolutely.
that, tying that, making that connection to the theme.
Yes. How does the author's continuous use of the word bold help the author develop the theme?
So maybe you ought to say cumulative
You need the
impact
word
of a
cumulative.
specific word choice on meaning, tone, and
And theme, yes.
If you want me to try to.
Yeah, cumulative throws me off too, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Yes.
So that it's not just,
It's not just
And I
a
Could
think
you
that-
just change it
piece.
to what you said, like analyze how the author continually uses?
Analyze how the author's use of the word bold throughout the text helps develop the theme, or impacts the
You
theme,
could
or
say
impacts the setting,
analyze
or something like that.
how
So
the
it's
repetition
continuous.
of specific word choices
I think that's.
influences meaning, tone, and theme.
I wouldn't put repetition in there. Because they're gonna use that, when you use that word repetition, they're gonna think what, parallel structure? Or what, simile, I don't know.
Analyze
so like if, well, I
how
think
we're
about,
reading a particular word choice.
I think about there's a text, the Perret essay from the, I don't know what year, AP language test, that,
About the fight?
yes.
Yeah,
And all of these sort of animalistic
right,
type words that are in
Right.
that very, very short
right.
recap of that fight.
Well, you would want choices on meaning, tone, and.
Right,
And-
and so
and
if
then-
it's, pick out the tone of that piece,
Right.
that, we do expect students to be able to
Right.
notice that all of those
Right.
are
Here's
animal-like.
another,
And that's where she's.
And
coming
here's
with
another
cumulative
one.
impact.
Yeah.
Mhm.
here's another one. The author continually uses slang throughout the text. How does the author use of slang help develop an informal tone? So that's why you want cumulative left in there,
Mhm.
because it's overall, throughout the piece.
Well, shouldn't we go ahead and add the theme?
Do you want the word cumulative in there, and do you wanna put cumulative in
It
the
should be.
glossary?
Well, but
No, people could get that.
Jeanette has said numerous
Cumulative.
times that if we look down at cluster number 2, the third bullet says, analyze how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning.
I think that's
Right.
where we're at.
We need, that is
Oh,
where
I
we
think
are.
you're talking about that.
But yeah, so,
Cause this is that
This is
literal,
different.
like, this
Yeah.
is just reading
This
it,
is reading.
understanding it to understand the text.
Right.
We're just comprehending the text here, right?
Right.
so I think what
Right.
Even
Mary
the
Della is
theme.
saying, what does the word blank mean in paragraph 3? That's what this is asking.
Right,
What
right.
you're asking us to
We
do
haven't moved to cluster 2
is
yet.
cluster
Right.
2.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, no, wait a
I
minute.
think so.
Am I on the right standard?
No, you are.
Yeah,
Alright.
or reading literature.
The standard you're looking at has combined two different standards that we split
Yeah.
apart.
Okay.
Is what's really happening, right? You
Alright.
have,
Yeah.
it's combining
Okay.
what does the word literally mean with how is the
Okay.
word being
So can
used
you-
by the
Well,
writer
where are we on that chart?
Okay, we're on the
We're on
second
the
bullet.
top one, cluster 1.
But I agree, I feel like what you're talking about really is like down in
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also even down in here.
All right, let's go
Yeah.
back to standard
Oh, yeah.
4.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is, cause what we've said is determine word meanings and context, so we're saying, okay, we start with comprehending the text, so we're just approaching it as a reader, what does the text say? In order to be able to do that, you need to know what words mean and how to figure them out when you encounter them, so that's what we're working on right now, so
Well,
if that's the
isn't
case.
that standard 4?
Well, it's kind of, but if that's the case, my question is, does this analyze the impact, does this part come off?
Yes.
No, but where do we
And
put
go
it?
down later?
Yes.
It
It
goes
comes
down later.
at this standard
comes from
here.
structure.
Oh.
Analyze how
During
tone,
craft.
word choice, and syntax
Yeah.
contribute to meaning.
Down here, the second, or the third and the fourth, fifth.
Okay,
Those are
but
gonna be
That's what I meant
but you've
when I
got your
said
figurative
You're on
language up
words
here.
with one of them, now you're on.
Yeah.
That's true.
larger.
You've
What'd
got
you
your
say?
figurative language here.
Right, but you still have to know what the figurative language means in order to be able to understand the text, but you don't have to.
Okay, so you're thinking of
Analyze the
splitting
author's use of
this
that.
in two parts?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we have down now. Because
Because look, the heading is comprehend and interpret text versus analyze, craft, and structure.
Okay.
And then when you analyze, craft, and structure, then you're looking at how all those things work together.
All right, but
That's
we
the-
can't forget to get that back on, get it on there.
We'll hit it when we get to that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of specifics in two.
Because if you don't,
Okay.
you're gonna lose your.
So in
rhythm.
this first one, for 12, 11 and 12, I need to take out, I just need to end it at connotative meanings. Boom, right?
Right.
Yes.
And then the rest of that comes later.
Yes.
And for this one, you really aren't gonna be able to develop a grade band unless you specify, like, what is an upper high school word, or is it, and you can't do that, really. I mean, it's sort of like the same text
Isn't this just
complexity, but
determining the meaning of a word in
Right.
context?
Right, that's what I mean, the
Pretty
skill
much.
is going to be the same kindergarten through
Just
12th grade, what
Word
changes
or
are
phrase.
the words that you're.
Isn't that a language, is that in our language skill?
Well, it may-
Determining the meaning
But it
of an
also
unknown
should be a
word?
I think we
reading
divorced it
content.
from language. didn't we?
Well,
I
it could
think
be-
language is just.
It could be a vocabulary part.
It's
of it,
more
right?
vocabulary development.
But I would put it here too.
Yeah, you're right, it is in language
Yeah.
again, though. The
Yeah,
vocabulary.
we struggled
Makes
with,
sense of unknown words.
right, we
Can't we
struggled
have it in
with,
both?
Well,
Yeah.
but
Be
then you
redundant.
have redundancy. I would err on taking it out of one or the other.
Using context clues to determine the meaning of an unknown word.
I think they have it here because
Vocabulary.
if you don't know how to interpret a specific word, how are you gonna interpret comprehensive text? I mean, sorry, yes.
So then my bird walk. My question is, do we need to have the vocabulary category in language?
Well, it
Maybe
doesn't,
not.
if
It's
we
redundant.
eliminate that one
Maybe not.
bullet, it doesn't mean we don't have other bullets.
Well,
well,
there's
and we
only
didn't
two-
clean this one up yet either,
Yeah.
so this
Yeah.
one's one
Let's
that's.
just leave it.
So maybe we
Makes
should
sense.
work through reading and then come back at this one and
Okay.
decide,
Yep.
what did we put in reading, are we satisfied or not satisfied, and then
Yeah.
shore it
Alright.
up however we need to through language.
To me, the language use is the most important of the language cluster.
The language use, okay.
Vocabulary, I think, maybe
Maybe
elsewhere.
Okay, so
But
let's keep working
Yeah,
through this
we'll-
one, and then we'll revisit it when we
Comment
come
on that,
back.
but, okay.
Well,
Okay.
in my grade level.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. So what I have done is I deleted that part, so determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in the text, including figurative and connotative meanings. Good? Okay, now I'm gonna go back to 10th grade again.
It's gonna be the same.
Okay, smarty pants.
I'm just, it's gonna be the same all through 6th, 12th.
I was like, no, it's not. Look, that says cite textual evidence. Never mind.
Yeah,
Because
it
they
is
really
same.
like.
The only thing that
analyze
changes is
the
after
impact of-
the semicolon.
Yeah.
But what you could say is sort of grade, I mean, again, it's still ambiguous, but you could say grade appropriate, like.
Well, what's the thing that changes here is the text.
The text complexity,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's
See,
why
and
you
I'm
put
still
grade
wondering,
appropriate.
okay, I hate to bring it up, but analyze at grade 6, analyze the impact of a specific word choice on meaning and tone. And I do think that that's different from analyzing how larger segments of words.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
that vertical progression.
Okay, but we just took that out.
But we'll put
We're
it
gonna put
back
it
when
in
we get
over
down to
there.
cluster 2,
No, that problem.
Why?
because that's
Because
analyzing how
that, the
tone,
reason
word
they
choice,
have
and
it here
syntax
is they wanna
contribute to
deal
meaning.
with,
Because you're approaching the text as a writer there as opposed to approaching the text as a reader, right? You're not comprehending what it means, you're.
No.
Well, I mean, all of it's blurred, but.
Analyze the impact of specific word choice on meaning and tone
Yeah.
comes when you're reading,
Yeah, it does.
not approaching the
writing.
text as a writer.
I'd say both, so. But I don't know.
You're looking at how did the writer create this, right, as a I mean,
No.
I don't wanna.
no,
splice
you're
this
looking
just
as a
because-
reader at how specific words do this, then you're looking at how larger word groups do.
Right.
That's the
Well,
distinction they're making.
But you're looking at.
Because why did the author choose those words as opposed to other words?
Or
And
how
the-
did the
and the reason
author's
they put
use
it-
of the
they made
word
them
do
say-
this?
I have nothing to say because I didn't put this in the first cluster anyway. But I see, like, I get, the point I get is, first I have to understand the words as
Yes.
they're used.
Yes.
Later I start thinking to myself, why did the author do that?
And how do those
Yeah,
impact, how?
Cause I can just read it to read it
All right.
and understand it, but then later I can
Right.
think, or not even later, but the next step is, once I understand what the meaning is, or what it says, oh, I gotta get this.
Well,
Yeah, and I know what you mean, because
Okay.
you continually move back and forth from the really specific aspects of the text to what you're supposed to, the sense you're supposed to make out.
Yeah, well, and then eventually you look at those and say, okay, for these two texts that are both about the Ferguson situation, how does the language in this one differ from the language in this one, and how does that interpret its meaning, or help us understand its meaning?
Right.
But I,
Which goes
and
back to Jana's whole thing about words versus language.
Yes, but I don't know that we are.
I told you so, no.
Right, yeah.
I'm not sure, and, you know, we haven't really discussed if we're going to include the language that says approaching the text as a reader, approaching the text as a writer, because it seems a little, confusing and nobody would be there to really explain that. So, giving that to a teacher, I don't know that we include that language, so we have to remember that teachers aren't going to have that understanding as they read the standards.
I agree, and right now we have to focus on the text as a reader, and then when we do the writing ones, we can focus.
And, but right now, do you guys agree that that this second piece on this standard does not belong approaching the text as a writer? I mean,
It belongs under analyzed craft instruction. The second.
oh, yeah, you're right, it goes under that second
Yeah.
cluster, yes, okay, good. All right,
I've got to use that.
I wish we could, okay, got it.
So,
It goes under craft instruction. We're making these hierarchical in nature.
What do you suppose that machine is? Is that an old school beer?
I think everything else.
Doesn't look safe, does it?
No, that thing right there, I think it's a fan. That right there?
Yeah.
Fan/heater.
That's a fan, isn't it? Is it a fan or a heater?
So we're saying bullet point 2 does not belong where it's at right now? So, what I'm getting, or my
No, I
brain
think-
has just blipped out for a
I
minute.
think what we're saying is,
Yeah, that second part goes.
dare I
right under-
man the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
Nick.
think what we're saying
Just don't touch it.
is
Point.
this one that you were looking at, right, is really two different
Parts.
learning objectives for us.
Ah.
One of which should go in the top part.
Yes.
The
And
first,
one goes
and the
in the
one of
bottom.
which should go in the bottom part.
Agree.
But right now, we're just focusing on the top part because
Right.
that's where we are in
And
this document.
I'm gonna confuse it by saying I think that's debatable, what you just said. But that's okay. We
Sure.
can leave it that way, but
Well, I am all for combining and consolidating standards, so I'm
Right.
fine if we wanna remove it from the top bullet.
Well, if we remove it from the top bullet, then we're gonna confuse people. Because on the fused top one, it's comprehend and interpret.
Yes.
And that next one is analyzing craft and structure, and that's really what it's all about.
And I think that's why we split
if you
it,
look at the
but-
other bullets we have under that, the first two have to do with text-based evidence and figuring out what words mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then immediately it jumps to author's purpose, theme, summary, and those are things that depend on the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason that's in there. I'm done. I said what I'm gonna say.
I
You're-
don't know that I'm
Oh, I
saying anything different
see.
from you, but.
Yeah.
You're
That's-
saying you can't do the next 2 without the analyzing.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
It's a skill you have to have at the word level.
That's true.
And that's why it's there. That's what I've been.
All right.
Done with that.
My light bulb just dimly came on.
So, we can take that analyzed piece, and that all analyzed piece goes somewhere under here. Down
Or
here.
you think it needs to stay here?
So do we need
Well-
do we need to repeat, analyze how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning then in cluster two?
But that's looking at it from the angle of craft and structure, which is different from the angle of interpreting. In other words, if you don't know how individual words fit in the whole text, then you're not gonna understand and interpret the text. But then, if you are analyzing the craft and structure, now you're working in a different, coming in a different, from a different
What,
angle.
which number are you talking about?
I'm talking about the clusters now.
Yeah.
And whether or not there's cluster one versus cluster two.
Oh, there, okay, I've got it right here.
I think we'll have more methods in cluster
Okay.
2. Do we?
They are.
How to do this?
They
Okay. Okay, so have we finished that top part?
Are we leaving in word choices on meaning and tone, or just cut it off after analyze the impact of specific word choices?
I don't think, I think that analyze
On
the
meaning,
impact.
tone, and themes,
And theme,
All right,
and then cut off the rest.
Right.
That was what we had.
Right?
Yeah,
Right.
meaning, tone, and theme.
I think
Period.
we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So really, and we would have the same standard for all of them, with the caveat that what changes is the sophistication of the vocabulary, which comes from the sophistication of the text.
no, you're gonna have put in grade level text?
So we could add that if you,
Yeah.
I mean, that
That's what I would put.
determine the meaning of words and phrases as they're used in grade appropriate texts. How do
No,
we
I
wanna,
wouldn't
I
put
mean.
grade appropriate. It's grade level, isn't it?
Your thoughts, classroom teacher? I mean, it's
Well, but does that tie,
When you say grade appropriate, I'm thinking of special education teachers. All right? They have little Johnny that's in the 10th grade,
I see what you're saying.
and little Johnny's
Yeah, yeah,
reading
yeah.
on a 3rd grade level.
Right,
Now, little Johnny in the 10th grade, his grade appropriate text is grade 3.
I see what you're saying. But the assessment's gonna be written
On
at the
grade
grade
10.
level.
but
Yeah.
it also prevents me from teaching something like Grapes of Wrath that doesn't, that isn't grade level text.
Well, grapes of wrath can be, because when you use
I
that
wouldn't say-
second scoring rubric,
Right.
you'll push
Right,
it up.
if you use qualitative and quantitative,
Right.
but
Yes.
we
Yeah.
don't allow for that here. And that's another thing that we are going to assume teachers know.
Right.
And I don't
They do.
know that
Yeah.
we can do that.
We tell them that not to use just the Lexile.
Right, but we don't
They
reach
should-
everybody, you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know, I think there are a lot of teachers who,
Well, are we gonna put grade appropriate or grade level? I'd be careful on grade appropriate, because what they're gonna start doing is, my class is reading a little bit below level,
Right.
you know. I think in 3rd grade
Are
appropriate.
there different adjectives we could, like high complexity versus low
Well, the problem is too, that grade
complexity?
level text is different, so.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so if we decided to eliminate the analyze the impact of specific word choice on meaning, tone, and theme.
We're gonna move it to a different spot.
I'm against that.
Well, we either remove all of them, and put them in a different spot. I don't think you ought to leave one and not,
what are we
I'm
deleting?
confused.
That's just what we talked about.
Analyze the
Yeah.
impact of specific word choice on meaning, tone, and theme.
Because on the next
Okay.
one, you have to determine author's purpose, theme, summarize, recognize details, and draw logical inferences. So I would say that second bullet would have to have this for 3 and 4 to exist.
Yeah, that's what
Did you say you wanna keep them? I did too.
well, but I thought that second part goes down to bullet 3,
So like,
cluster 2.
look at, here's a different one, instead of looking at 8th grade, right? So in 6th grade, analyze the impact of a specific word choice on meaning and tone, and that's clearly a cluster 2 skill, right?
Yeah.
That second part, and that's the progression, so we were looking at
Right.
the 8th grade example of that, which is analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, including analogies or
And
allusions.
that's the part we wanted to.
But at 11th and
Yeah,
12th
that's what we
grade,
got rid
it's
of.
analyze, including words with multiple meanings and language that's,
Yeah, we got rid of the
But you see what I'm saying? Like, that, you know, in this entire standard, as part of its progression, everything that follows the semicolon is really more about analyzing craft, and everything before the semicolon
Right.
is more about comprehension.
Because at the, that implies to me that they're acknowledging that individual words can do that.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you take the word analyze, from the word analyze on, and you just copy it, put it under bullet 3,
what's-
cluster 2, it would work.
And what the progression kind of does is that 6th grade, it starts at the individual word level, but it starts to, how it gets more sophisticated is it starts to
Right,
look at
exactly.
bigger chunks of words or repetition of words or, yeah, what we were
Which
talking
is
about before.
different from analyzing the craft of
Right.
the text. It's an
True.
interpretation skill.
True. So what do we wear? Hey, we're at least knocking one out an hour. It's only
All right.
40-some hours left.
Well, and I just have to remember, I have to constantly remind myself that we can come back to this and it's not,
That's why I'd almost rather
Written blood.
put more in than less, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
you can do that.
Throw
You
it
can
all
cut
on
it.
there and
Yeah.
then once it's
Type it out
done.
later.
When you're
I would like to
revising.
see that go back in,
I'm
that
gonna
one
make
part,
a note.
not when you get to the analogies and the fancy or fresh and engaging, yeah, we axe that, but that doesn't preclude.
Okay, so which part?
Analyze the impact.
I don't think
specific
you
word
should put it
choices on
there.
meaning and tone.
Because aren't you moving that to cluster 2, where you would have analyze, craft, and structure?
Well, I think what we're saying is, go ahead and put it there and underline it maybe, so that we know we're not sure about it, or italicize it, whatever you wanna do.
Because my contention, Janet, is that they're talking about it at an interpretive level, it's standard 2, and then the next are 3 minutes, and then in the next, well, it's our bullet 2. And then the next ones are a different, they're at the analysis level rather than interpretation level. If you go back to the old, whatever his name
Okay.
was,
Blue?
yeah, taxonomy guy,
Are you talking about grade 6?
any grade, 6 through
Okay.
12.
That?
Except I had said meaning, tone, you actually can't do that, but don't put that in if you don't want. I'm not worried about that. Cause that gets the idea, meaning gets it.
And you still think that is different from analyzing how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning? I mean, to me, that literally says what we said in cluster 2.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't know, because I think in cluster 1, it would be a perhaps single question that asks students in this line, what is the
I see
meaning of
2
this word and
questions up
how
there.
does it contribute to the tone, and maybe even asking them there what the tone is, or what is the tone determined by sentences 2 through 4.
And to me, it has to do with, we have a cluster, number 1, that says interpret, comprehend, interpret. We have another cluster that says analyze, craft.
Should we?
It's 2 different,
Right.
it's 2 different things.
I guess I'm still getting hung up on the interpret part of it. Should interpret even be part of cluster 1? Cause
I
I
think
view
it should.
interpreting more with analysis than I do with comprehension.
You use analysis to help you interpret.
Right.
But, I see comprehend and interpret as going together. Because they mean, say, understand it, say what it means. And analyze it is at the level of, let's pull all these parts that are elements of a text, specific elements. And let's look at them.
Well, why don't we just leave it,
So we, should
so
we
when we
change
start
verb
adding
here
the other
then
one,
to interpret
when we
instead of
start.
analyze? Interpret the
Determine
impact
the
of a,
meaning. Oh,
in a specific
Why
word
don't you
choice
just
on meaning
highlight
and
it?
tone?
it's okay the way it is.
If you just highlight, analyze the impact and on that one, and then when we start using the spiraling backwards on the other one, if we see that it doesn't belong there, we can go back and take it off. Analyze how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning. Analyze the impact of a specific word on meaning.
Would you screw it up? Carrie's gonna be
And
mad at
tone.
you.
There you go. So then do you want the vertical progressions? Because that's 6, but that changes from 7. Analyze the impact of rhymes and other repetitions of
Yeah, see,
sounds
we
on a
were
specific
taking-
verse or stanza.
Wait, I thought,
You're
And
not,
8,
that one's out.
it's
Yeah.
analyzing
I
the
thought that
impact of
should be out.
specific word choices on meaning and tone,
no, I
including
think they wanted
analogies or
to take all
allusions.
those out.
in ninth and, that's what I'm saying, so I don't understand, why are we adding it to
Well,
sixth
she-
if we're not
She
adding?
already had it set up that way, before she got married.
Yeah, I know.
Cumulative impact of specific word
That's what I
choices.
don't understand, why we're
Nobody's
just
trying to
leaving
add
it at
those things
6 and
back.
we're taking it out of all the other
That's
ones.
what I'm thoroughly confused then. So you want this phrase just repeated for all of them, and there is not a progression of that part?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so.
then we can take it out
That's
if
the
we don't
point.
want, if we don't want.
Okay. So just copy this for all of them.
And I thought she had done that, but.
Determine author's purpose. Neat. Neat.
Which one do you think it is?
I don't know that there's going to be a good one on this one.
Author's purpose and
Oh, there is
Author's purpose
one, I
and-
saw one, it's a little bit farther, it is,
Although I
anchor
think it's-
standard, 6. It says how point of view or purpose shapes the content style.
Alright, it's also, 2. So you've got theme in 2,
That's true.
and you've got purpose in 6.
And we've got theme as a separate, so the
Do we?
third bullet, determine author's purpose, would be the closest to 6, and determine identified theme would be standard 2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm going to argue once again, theme and central idea are not the same thing, and they shouldn't even be dealt with in the same
But we knew that.
manner.
Well, they put them together, is what she's
Yes,
saying.
they're
You're
together.
saying we
but-
should-
So
Oh,
we,
I
we're
see.
saying
Yes.
just say determine
Right.
the themes of the
Theme.
text.
Right.
And I think it should
We
be plural,
separated
because
ours.
sometimes there are multiple themes
Yes.
in really advanced.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
even on my level,
There are.
you can't
Sure.
just say, this
There's
has
one
one
theme.
theme, because they'll come up with, well, how about, and then,
Should we put should we slash it, put themes, or put a parentheses and put an S, or what?
Right now, I mean.
No, I just leave it as.
Okay.
And I don't know why instead
Well-
determine 2 or more.
This one says.
Oh, it does.
that must be up in the higher, so.
Yeah,
That's what the
that's
12th
grade
grade
11
level,
high school.
but-
In other words, they're saying find the multiple themes.
Do you deal with universal themes?
You know, I think,
like
the reason I think it says theme or central idea, when I was teaching, ninth. When I was teaching ninth last year, the literature standards apply, many of the literature standards apply more
Oh, yeah.
to a teaching of a memoir than
Right.
the informational text. However, does that mean that it has a theme or that it doesn't have a theme? If it doesn't have a theme because it's still informational text, because it's a memoir, then, and
But I
that's
think
sort of the
a lot of
explanation that I got.
informational texts that aren't even memoirs do have a central theme.
Hmm.
Well,
Do you talk
they have
about them
central idea.
right?
Yeah.
And
Or
that, I
their
think that
message.
point of let's make, if you just keep one with one, genre of text and one with the other, that maybe helps.
I really like to separate it
Yeah,
on
I
6
don't
or 8.
see anything
Yes,
wrong with that.
because- yeah.
I personally think both texts can have both things. And that a central idea often has to do more with, something
Main
less
idea.
universal.
What is this
Yeah,
about?
less
Yeah.
universal.
The theme,
That
the
makes
way we
sense. I
teach the
struggled with
theme
it
is
last
what
year.
is the
Right.
message
Yes.
Yeah.
that the author is giving,
Yes.
Yeah.
implied or.
Right. Right.
And so that's why I like theme on this.
Right.
But I bet the reason they put central ideas or themes is because they are, for so many people, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
well, and
That has
I,
always bothered
that
me.
was the explanation that I received from multiple Common Core
Right.
people.
Was it?
Was that it was for for those informational texts or nonfiction texts, I suppose, that are actually more narrative in structure than there's either or.
So on the first one,
Everything
it's
okay?
Should I be
determine
doing
the
something?
author's purpose and identify the theme. So at this point, it's lower level right now at this top part.
What's that,
Determine author's purpose and identify the theme, so it's basically just naming them right now, right? In the top. What is the author's purpose? What is the theme?
Under cluster one?
We don't touch theme again though. This is the only place we mention theme currently on
Yep.
our document.
And it's just says
And
identify
the
theme.
first bullet under cluster two, identify and analyze how the overall structure produces the meaning of a text.
True.
And that would be close to.
True. True.
Well, I'm just saying. Just wanted to. But I don't have a problem with those kinds of things coming up multiple times because it seems like.
I
that's
guess,
what we
yeah.
do.
I guess, I mean, like, all of them, I guess, contribute to theme.
Yeah.
All of number two
Right.
contributes.
Right.
You
I'm
could-
just saying, yeah.
If you needed the word theme in there somewhere, on the third bullet in the second cluster, you could say something like determine how tone, word choice, and syntax contribute to meaning and help develop theme. If you needed theme in there, if you don't need theme somewhere, then.
Which actually is what we talked about earlier with that theme.
And then on the bottom, you could say analyze on that same cluster, on the fifth bullet, analyze how literary devices contribute to meaning and help develop theme. So if you need to add theme to that second part, you could add it to this part.
Are theme and meaning different?
I don't know.
I think meaning is broader.
Yeah, it is.
Right, but does theme,
So are we are we liking that standard two that's on here or not for this one?
Determine two or more themes.
Determine author's
All right.
purpose and identify the theme. I mean, I don't know that I like the wording 100%
Right.
to say
what we
exactly.
have, wait, which one?
I got
On
it.
here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Come on the left?
Well, and then the second part of that, when you get to the semicolon, that really bleeds into our last bullet
Mhm.
point, which is summarize the text, recognizing significant details and drawing. Really, the logical inferences is kind of redundant based on what we already put for the first standard. So they've kind of combined, I would argue that that particular standard combines bullet points 3 and 4 that we separated.
This one?
Yes, I would say everything up to that semicolon is kind of what the third bullet point is saying. And after the bullet, or after the semicolon is the fourth bullet point.
what standard is the author's purpose?
There is
Two.
There is one, yeah.
No.
Well, that's
Six.
theme.
No.
Six
that's-
gets
but
into
that's
that
theme.
sometimes, but in literary
Yeah.
text, it tends to be more point of view, I believe.
Right.
But the thing about six
Yeah.
is how purpose shapes content and style, which is a different, that's a.
Now, what I was thinking of on author's purpose on my level is the old entertain, inform, persuade.
Which in a literary text, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, right, most of them are. I don't really go there either. Everything's blurred, everything's
Well, and it might start younger that you identify them as one of those things.
Yes.
But certainly as they get older, they need to understand that there's persuasive elements as part of narration,
Right.
and
Yeah.
narration is part of.
That's why maybe,
Persuasive speech.
are you thinking maybe we shouldn't have those as two separate bullets? That we should combine purpose and theme in literary text? In other words, you know, as a single,
I
as a
don't know.
strand instead of two separate strands, because people will think author's purpose, well, in a literary text, it's not easily identifiable in the way it is in a.
That's true.
So repeat what you just, are you considering striking the word author's purpose from the literary texts? You just-
No, I
or
even
no?
suggested exploring, although probably not at this time of the day, starting, exploring the idea of somehow combining purpose and theme, or even eliminating purpose for literary text.
Yes.
I think
And
eliminate.
just have
I
theme.
think,
Well, I think that when we tend to think about author's purpose in a literary text, it is the theme.
yes.
That's
Like
what I
it's the
mean.
message
Right.
that
You
the
could
author is
eliminate-
trying
you
to
could eliminate
send you.
purpose
So it
part.
is the theme
Yes.
and it's
Yeah,
not,
like go back to
it's
nine,
not like
which
a,
Our themes
like an
up.
Yeah.
informational wow.
I mean, you could say, it's like Night, which is a memoir, so it's not
Well-
a fiction text, but you could say, his purpose is to expose what happened.
And
But his theme.
if we look at what we did for nonfiction, we have determine author's purpose and identify main idea or claim. So I think we
They would
were,
go
I think we were
together,
thinking
yeah.
that
Yes.
anyway,
Right,
that the
right.
author's
Oh, okay.
purpose is theme for literary.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks for.
So really, that author's purpose basically gets the thing to convey the message.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
So is that a little confusing here? Should we take out author's purpose here?
That's what we're
Yeah.
thinking, maybe try it without that.
All
and
right,
just
I
have
think
the
that's a
next
good
one
idea, because I think that's really confusing
Determine,
here.
Yeah. I'm okay with
identify
that.
theme.
So will that one just be identify the theme or themes?
If we have just identified the theme up
But
here.
make it plural.
All right, then we need to remember, what else
You
can
wanna
you
determine
with
theme?
Determine the themes.
All right, and then you, maybe somewhere, we need to talk about and describe how the author develops the theme over the course of the text.
Well, that's in cluster two.
All right, so I'm gonna make sure we get it in there, I'll just write it
Yeah.
myself a note.
Determine the theme.
We put a parenthesis as parentheses.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Oh, so I meant on theme, I meant on theme, not on text.
Thank you for your help
Thanks,
today.
Elizabeth.
Hopefully we'll work it out.
We'll see.
Thanks.
I'm not intending to,
I think
I won't
it
be here
should
till
be-
9 tomorrow anyway, because I have a department chair meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so,
Okay.
I think it should be plural on themes and not plural on text. See what-
yes, that's what I was saying too, sorry.
Oh,
Themes
themes.
of a text.
And what did you say, you'll be here till 9?
He-
I
he
won't,
be here
I
tomorrow.
won't get here
See,
until
at the
9
department chair
tomorrow
meeting.
morning,
Oh,
'cause
okay.
yeah, can't cancel.
Well, you may have an interesting day tomorrow, young man.
So I should bring my trumpet, so when you walk in.
Gabriel,
There we go.
Gabriel.
Or you can just text me if I don't need to come.
Smart guys.
I know
Are we?
it. It's not gonna go.
So do you wanna just put this on hold and talk about that, or do you wanna, okay, I really didn't wanna have that conversation after Elizabeth left, but, anyway, so we're just gonna put this on
We're
hold?
officially
Yeah,
done, right?
and
So
I
we don't
think
have
we're,
more people.
at least my brain.
So-
Okay, so one of the things I wanna talk about, which I should talk about tomorrow, is, about numbers. I'm a little concerned about, like what happened today with weather, and, when on Sunday, it looks like we're gonna have, 11 people or whatever, but then on Monday morning, we end up losing a couple. I'm a little, I don't want to have people already here, like, I said, like, I mean, I was told Heather drove in last night. Danette, I know you drove in last night. I don't know if anyone else did, but like, I hate to have people here ready to work. Or like this morning, I was en route when I found out that one person was not gonna be coming, which was the smart thing for her to do. But I'm thinking, if we go forward and we have meetings like that, and all of a sudden our number goes from, well, we thought we were gonna have 11, and now we only have 8, because 3 people got stuck in the weather, I don't wanna have 8 people show up and then say, oh, well, I guess we can't work today. I don't think that's a good, I don't know, at this point, pretty much anything is a disruption, it doesn't really matter anymore. It can be a disruption every time we get together, I'm fairly certain of it.
Oh, yeah.
So, maybe that's just one more, but, I think that's obviously a larger group conversation, but that's something I think we need to talk about tomorrow is, what do we do in instances like that, because that's beyond our control. We like tried to plan it out so that like, okay, we're gonna email and text if we can't be there, and that worked out really well yesterday. And then this morning, we ended up with a little bit of weather problems, so, which I had no idea was coming until I heard the freezing rain at about 4:30 this morning. I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, it's too late for me to even change the plans to get some, get kids here and there.
And since
I'm
we're
just gonna
coming
be
from
late,
all
it's just the way it's gonna be.
And that's, we can
Yeah.
have anything.
Okay, so there's that. So we can talk about that tomorrow, as well as, maybe thinking of, I think we also need to talk about dates going forward. And then if we like this template,
Things down that we need to talk about. I'll just write it down right now.
we also need to decide, do we like the template of having standards side by side? And if we do, then how do we wanna, get that accomplished for the other strands? Because, it probably needs to be somehow, some sort of a group effort to get that done. I think it, might be possible to do, a shared Google sheet and have, someone say, well, I'll take care of Massachusetts and I'll take care of whatever, and we just copy and paste things in, that might work. So that's just something we need to think about. And I'm sure we can get some good substance of work done tomorrow.
You said
We
meeting
have
attendance,
copies.
template, and
Dates, meeting dates.
We have copies of South Carolina and Massachusetts and Sandra Stosky standards over here, maybe we could also just merge those.
Right, well, we can, my hope was that we would not have to flip through which one is it.
Oh, yeah.
So that way they're just laid out across, so you can see how they align.
Right.
Rather than us having to flip. My concern was, we're gonna end up, which is why I ended up doing it, I was so worried about how much time we have spent going, well, you find it in this document, and you find it in this document. If it's just laid out, then it's just one less thing we have to spend our time on, in the meeting, so that's that. Is there anything else that you think that we need to add to tomorrow that we
We start at 8 in the morning?
do?
And
Well,
what-
that's what
then
time we
what time are we
officially
gonna
start.
go to lunch? I'm not really worried about going to lunch, but
Just a good
I'm gonna
idea.
go see my legislator at lunch tomorrow, and I told him I would let him know. He told me I could come. I
Okay.
didn't know if we break at 11 or 11:30, or whatever time it is. And he
We-
told me he was open.
I think we typically do about 11:30, don't we?
Okay.
Alright. Anything else we need to add to tomorrow?
Are we expecting another person to show up?
I would expect a whole bunch of people to show up at this point,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's not, gonna have a room full of people, I suspect.
I would kinda like to know, and this is probably unknowable, but I want to know, are we going to have a finished product on this thing sometime? I mean, really, are we just gonna spin our wheels and argue and have political problems the rest of the year?
That is
But it may not be an or. I mean, I would contend we will have political problems. But I don't think that means we can't finish it.
You don't think it does? What I'm afraid of is when we get down to the end, we've got all this done, and we'll have people say, I'm not signing that. I refuse, I wanna know right now.
Well, then it reverts back to what we got, the information we got at the first meeting, which is now we have the standards we have. The standards that are now in place continue to be
We
our
were told if we
standards.
cannot reach consensus,
Okay.
things stay the way they are.
Yeah.
That's what we were told.
All right.
And if people are gonna be fractious and not sign it, that's kinda like the, no offense, that's
I guess I would just like to know.
I started to make a comparison, it's probably
Well,
not appropriate.
I'd like to know at this point, is that going to happen? I mean,
well, do we all have to sign it in order for
No.
it to?
We just have to produce a product, don't
I
What
anticipate,
happens at group?
we? And we have to get 9 votes to move it
I
on.
anticipate you're gonna have resistance to even the 2.5 standards we fleshed out so far today.
I think we will too.
I think that will be the least.
Yeah, I agree. In the scale of things that are going to be contentious tomorrow,
Contention.
that will not be high on the list. But in talking about where we're going from here, I don't think fact that
it's
you
going to
get
be too much like,
2.5 of the students.
it's gonna be too much like comic book. It's-
Okay, so are we finished for the day? Is that what we're, I feel like we're done.
Yeah.
I feel like we're.
I mean, I think that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm gonna ask again.
People have had to have read it.
Are we finished? Are you finished for the day?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're finished for the day. I'm gonna turn this, well, I guess I don't see you over you, but I'm going to.